Okay, great. So in your breakout rooms, y'all just finished up doing a little bit of review of how map, find all, and find work. And I'm not going to go too deep into all of that since it is more review, other than to say the return value of the block is really what matters with those three enumerables. So with map, you're going to get a new array filled with return values from the block. With find all, you're going to get an array filled with original elements based on the return value of the block. And find, very similar, but instead of an array of original elements, you are going to get a single original element. So hopefully that felt a little bit like review. If you have additional questions about map, find all, and find, go ahead and post them in the code help thread, and I'll address those there. But we are going to move on to some new enumerables, and we're going to start with min and max. So min and max are enumerables that help us get like the biggest thing out of an array. And I want to sort of explore like what this code might look like with each first and show that to you, and then show you what happens with min and max. So I'm going to share my screen. And not that one, this one, great. And I'm just going to copy some code from the lesson into this Ruby file here. So this little code snippet is to like get the largest number from an array. And zoom, put that where I don't want it. There we go. So here's how we can get the largest number from an array using each. If we have an array, we can get the greatest of that array by iterating over and asking each element, are you greater than any of the other elements that I have already looked at? Okay, and now this works. If I run this, we're going to get 9. 9 is the biggest number in this particular array. But it's a lot of code to tackle a relatively straightforward problem. And it's a very common problem. And so Ruby has given us an enumerable that will help with this. And that enumerable is max. And so if I wanted to redo this with max, I would say I could print nums dot max. I'm going to comment the rest of this out, and I'm going to run this, and we get 9. So much easier. So much easier. Question for y'all. What is different about this enumerable than many of the other enumerables that we've seen so far, or that we've worked with in class? Yeah, Mitchell.
Doesn't have a do.
It doesn't have a do. It doesn't have a block. So what the heck? Why is this even an enumerable? When I was first learning about enumerables, it was that block, that like do and end, that was my visual cue of like, ooh, I'm working with an enumerable right now. But here we have one that has no block. So what makes an enumerable an enumerable? Like, what is the key characteristic of an enumerable? Does anyone think that they have an idea? Yeah, Lee.
Is it because it's iterating through the whole array?
Yeah, it's because enumerables solve iterative problems. So if we were to like write in longhand with the most like simple Ruby methods, if we were to rewrite this method, we would use an iteration pattern to solve that problem. So anything that's solved with an iteration pattern is an enumerable. There's also like another way that we can tell if it's an enumerable or not. Lawrence, did you have a thought on that, or did you want to add to something that Lee already said?
No, I'm sorry. I just had a question. No. I was raising my hand.
Yeah, go for it.
I forget. In that dot max, does it do the same thing where it holds the highest and compares it to the ones that come?
Mm-hmm. Yep. Yeah, under the hood, it's going to look a lot like this. Yep. Alex.
maybe if we're comparing multiple things or something like that. I don't know.
Yeah, comparison.
But like not with like an equals, but like,
Yeah.
I don't
Yeah,
know.
when you have to compare like everything against everything else. Yeah, that's typically an iterative problem. Yeah, Lawrence, did you have another question, or is your hand just still
Oh, no. I was gonna ask if it could be, it returns something different but doesn't change the original array.
Yes, it returns something different, but it does not change the original array. So I still have my whole nums array. Yeah. Cool. Great. So enumerables do solve iterative problems or iterative patterns. And they can either take a block or sometimes not. And one surefire way to know if a method is an enumerable is to actually look at the Ruby docs. Let me pull these up and pull these down here. And in the Ruby docs for the enumerable module, if that method is listed, it's an enumerable. kind of simple, silly way to know, but one thing I want y'all to get out of this lesson is like, you can go to the Ruby docs and there is some good information there. Documentation is difficult to read, I will say. It's definitely a skill to learn how to read documentation in a way that works for you. And so as much as you can, I would start like practicing the skill by referencing the Ruby docs. Yeah, Alex.
Random side note question. Who was in charge of writing Ruby docs? And like, why is it just, does it
That is a
when
really good
you're
question.
reading it, you're just like, oh yes, I understand everything. Like,
Yeah, who is in charge? Here's the real answer. I don't actually know 100%, but I believe that the Ruby docs might be open source. Like there might be a GitHub repo where you can contribute to the Ruby docs
that's kind of
potentially. I'm not 100% sure though. I'd have to do more research. There is like a core Ruby team that like is responsible for working on and maintaining and updating Ruby. And so they would be like responsible for the Ruby docs, but who actually writes the words, that might be a larger group of people. Sweet. So yeah, moral of the story is, long story short, some enumerables don't need a block. Cool. Does anyone know of any other enumerables that don't need a block off the top of your head?
some.
Some, yeah, some is one. That's a good one. Anyone know of any others?
Isn't sort?
Sort, yep. Mitchell, did you have another one?
Maybe min.
Min, I like it. Jameson, did you have any others?
Would count be one?
Yes, yeah, count is an enumerable. And count is an interesting one because we often use count, or I often see people using count when they really mean to use length. So count is an enumerable. And we'll talk a little bit more about this, I think, later, but count is an enumerable that can take a block or it doesn't have to. So if you look at the Ruby docs for count, it shows you a variety of different ways that count can be used. And count is an enumerable that can take no block, no argument, or it can take an argument, or it can take a block. So yeah, fun times, fun times. Not going to go too much further into that, but just wanted to show that just because a method doesn't have a block does not mean that it is not an enumerable. How's that for so many negatives in the early morning on a Monday? Alex.
Sorry about all these questions. Just to clarify. In the
Mhm.
way that we've been using count, as of up to right now, it's likely that we should be using length instead, right?
I think
And
so.
go back and like take a gander.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay.
So I think that like count will count the number of things in an array, but it counts those things like in a more slow way than length. And if you want to look into that more, that is a great side research project. Cool. Okay, so we've got this enumerable max. Someone also said the like reverse of max, which is min. And I hope that y'all can guess what min is going to give us. It's going to give us the smallest number. There is a little bit of like some funkiness going on with max and min though, and that comes when you try and ask max or min to do anything with something other than like numbers. Okay, the max and min number is a relatively like straightforward comparison in terms of I can visually as a human look at this nums array and know what max and min is going to give me. If I'm trying to compare some strings, it gets a little bit trickier. So I'm going to copy some code in here. And is it okay if I delete this code snippet that I have in here? It is in the lesson. Okay, great. Thank you. So I'm going to get rid of this. Let's see. Yeah, we don't need that. Let's call this names. Okay. What do we think names.min is going to be? Take a guess and throw it in the chat. What do we think names.min is going to be? Cool. Cool. We've got some guesses. I like it. I like it. All right, let's see. Whoops. Undefined method min. Oh, yeah, I can't call min and then min again. Okay, there we go. All right, let's try this again. Okay, it's Amy. Does anyone want to try and guess like why it's Amy? Let's go with Sammy.
Is it outputting the string that has the least amount of like, characters or letters?
Oh, that's interesting. So if it's outputting the one with the least amount of characters, now what will it do? If we add cat in there, now what will it do? Okay, it's still Amy. Let's hear from, oh yes, I love it. We've got so many hands up. Let's hear from Regina and then Caleb and then Jameson. And then we'll see if other folks still have things to say.
I think I had looked at this once, and I don't know if I'm thinking of the same instance, but is it because it starts with an A, and A is a 95 in order, or 96?
Ooh, order. Yeah. So here's a thing that you may or may not know. All of your like alphanumeric characters have an order. You'll often hear this referred to as their ordinal value. So you can see like A, lowercase a is a 97, uppercase A is a 65. Yeah, that could have something to do with it. I like it. Caleb, what do you think?
I was going to reference the ordinal value as well. I was kind of theorizing that it was the sum of the ordinal values, but it could just be taking the first position. So.
Yeah, I like it. And then Jameson, anything that you want to add?
Samesies.
Samesies. Yep, cool. Yeah, so the ordinal position definitely comes into play. I think that there might be like some weirdness with this. Let's try this. What if we have these like, what if we try and put hello, hi, hey, min. Can't remember what this gives us. Oh, not pry. I want to actually run the code. Hello. Is that expected based on ordinal value? I don't know. I think the way that I think about max and min is very useful with numbers, not very useful with anything else, because it is difficult to know exactly without like digging into the guts of this method what it's going to return to you for any given thing. Yeah, Regina.
For experimental purposes, could you put names.max and see if it does return Mike, even though Brian is no longer name?
Yeah.
Although, yes, I can see that it's maybe unpredictable. Like, so I can see why you would only want to necessarily use it on a numerical value.
Yeah, yeah, unpredictable is an interesting word. It is predictable if you know enough about the alphabet and ordinal values and how Ruby is compiling those things. Then it's very predictable, but I don't hold that information in my brain. Let's go Zach, Noah, Dane, and then Lawrence.
No, so I was just doing some sideline research on this. And basically, yeah, like max and min compare it in alphabetical order, but each letter as you go. So yeah, if you're working with a bunch of strings, it will get confusing pretty fast, but it is predictable.
Yeah, maybe it's better to say it's not easily predictable. Let's go. Oh shoot, I can't remember what order I said. Let's go Noah and then Dane.
Yeah, I'm just trying to wrap my head around, and maybe this is too much of a side question, but does Max turn those to an ordinal and sum them, or is it just comparing the first, or do we not know, or what's
I don't know.
Okay.
There is a method. I don't know exactly what it is. I think who was just speaking? I think Zach was sort of getting closer to that answer. Yeah. Let's go Dane, Lawrence, and Regina.
I was actually going to kind of ask that's kind of a similar question, just in that like I wasn't sure if it was like iterating through each character, like in each like element. It's like H is a lower H and H and H, and then it would go like E, I, E, and then it'd be like, okay, E's are like the lower ones, and then it would go to L, and that's lower than Y, but I don't.
Yeah, that could be. And then it's interesting because if I were gonna, oh no, I guess, yeah. The alphabet's just hard for me, I think. Maybe that's why it seems so unpredictable. Let's go Lawrence and Regina.
So this is like 10 minutes of testing, but it looks like it goes through the first letter, looks for the one with the smallest ordinal value. If it hits any ties, it goes to the second letter and looks for the smallest ordinal value. Or if any word ends before then, that word gets returned. So it's either the shortest or the one the lowest ordinal at the last, but it doesn't care about sums or anything.
I like it. Regina?
Oh, I like that answer too. I was just going to ask, is there a way of inputting something like this? And let's say in this case, you don't really know what it's doing. Maybe you don't know why it's returning that. Is there something that you could like put in that will return some kind of value or tell you why it's choosing that? I don't know if that question makes sense.
Yeah. So you could dig further into the docs. I'm not going to do this right now, but if you go in the docs and you click on the little like example text, I think it will show you the source code. And so you could go into the source code and try and figure out like what exactly is happening. I don't know that there's anything that will tell you like any command that you could run that will just like easily output like this is exactly what's happening.
Yeah, I am definitely one of those people that likes to tear things apart and know exactly why. So
so you're someone who's going to love the docs.
Yes. I don't want to just do something. I want to know why it works. That's how my brain works, and that's how I remember how to do things. Because if I don't remember how well, in this case, it's different, but a lot of the time. So
Yeah.
that will.
Well, and I think that this is a good point where it's like, it is sort of difficult to put into words or to concisely say like exactly how max is working on a string. And because of that, I just don't use max or min on strings. I'm like, I understand what it's doing when I use it on a number, so I will use it there. I don't really have a super great strong grasp of what it's doing on these strings, so I'm going to use a different tool.
Yeah,
Joe,
that makes sense. Thank you.
Yeah, let's go to Joe, and then we're going to take a palm.
I think you kind of answered this, but essentially what I'm gathering from this and to have some clarity is that min and max are not effective methods to use on strings. I would probably use like sort by or something, but
Yeah. So I would say like min and max to me don't feel like the best tools to try and grab a specific string, because of that sort of difficulty in wrapping your mind around exactly what's happening. Now, it's difficult for me because I'm terrible at the alphabet and remembering what order the letters go in. Some of you might feel like, no, Megan, this is very straightforward, and that's totally fine. Because for me, it feels a little bit like more difficult, I will always reach for a different tool, which is min by and max by, so that I have more control over what happens in that, like what that enumerable is doing. And we're going to talk about min by and max by right after the palm. Let's come back at 9:47. We'll come back at 9:47. Recording. Okay, cool. So before the palm, we were talking about min and max, which are two enumerables that do not take a block. Because they don't take a block, they are doing only what the original developers of Ruby have told them to do, which is they will look for the min or max of an array with a number that is fairly easy to sort of see what's happening. Min and max will give us either the lowest or the highest number. With things like strings, it's a little bit more complicated. So we often want to do something slightly different than just the straight min or max of an array. We often want to get like the longest string, or the string that has the most z's in it, or something silly like that. But typically with strings, like the longest is sort of what you're looking for, is the most common problem set to solve. And so we have another kind of grouping of enumerables that are min by and max by. And these enumerables, let's see, I'm going to say this is the longest name. Min and max by do take a block. So I'm going to say I want the max name by a specific characteristic. So not just the max name, but the max by a specific characteristic. And the characteristic is what I'm going to put in the block. So if I want the longest name by number of characters, I'm going to say name.length in my block. So I want the max name based on this characteristic, whichever one has the longest length. And if I print longest, I get Brian. Cool. So again, max by gives you a little more control to say, I want the biggest, the max, by a specific characteristic. And that characteristic is what I'm going to put in the block. What questions do y'all have about this? Yeah, Jameson, go for it.
I just have a question about formatting those. When you set an enumerable to a variable, I know Mike likes clean formatting. Is that like the preferred way to put it?
Are you referring to like the indentation?
Yeah.
Yes, this is the preferred way. Yeah.
Thank you.
So yeah, if I see something like this, like in an independent challenge, for example, I will most likely make a note to fix this indentation. Yeah. Now this, of course, will still work, right? Ruby itself doesn't care too much about that, but just for readability, yeah, this is the preferred method. Regina.
Does Ruby ever care about indentation? Is there, I guess, certain things that won't run if it's like weirdly indented?
I'm going to say Ruby does not care about indentation, but if you have poor indentation, it is more likely that you will have a syntax error that's not easily visible to your eye. And so it can sometimes seem like, oh, Ruby didn't like this because of the indentation, but it was actually probably a syntax error.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. Any other questions so far about min by and max by? Okie dokie. Let me take just a quick look at the lesson, make sure I'm not going too far ahead of this. Yeah. Okay, yep, this is what I want to do. All right, sweet. So we've talked about min and max by. There is also like a little grouping of enumerables that's very related to min and max and min by and max by, and that is sort and sort by. So if I wanted to sort these names, I could say names.sort, and this will sort them in whatever that ordinal value alphabetization nonsense Ruby has under the hood. So sort is a thing that can be pretty useful, particularly when working with integers, I think, or numbers. But just like min and max, sort has a counterpart, which is sort by. So I can sort by a specific characteristic. So if I wanted to sort my names by length, name.length, I could do that as well. Oh, yeah, I don't want to print the sort by. I want to actually save this. Let's say sorted by length is names.sort, and then I can print, oh geez, sorted by length. Cool, there we go. Amy, Kat, Mike, Brian. These are the names sorted by length. Lee, did you have a question?
Yeah, and you may have answered this and I might have been writing or you haven't gotten into this, but just sort, not sort by, is that going to automatically sort by the alphabet?
It's yes, basically. It's going to be based off of that same like ordinal value sorting that min and max by work off of.
Okay. And does it work for numbers as well, or is it predominantly?
Yes.
Okay. Cool.
Yeah, so if we had our nums, this could be like, I guess these need to be like separated. I'm trying to do just like random numbers here. If we want to print nums.sort, it will sort them in ascending order. You can see that here. Comment this out just to make it a little bit more clear what's happening. So sort will sort things in ascending order by default. Okay, and then sort by allows you to sort things by a specific characteristic. Yeah, Jameson.
Is it fair to say that given an enumerable with like an underscore by,
Mhm.
you're not necessarily trying to give it like a truthy block value. It's just, as you said, a characteristic that you're trying to like manipulate the
Correct.
output.
Yes, correct. So sort, like anything like by, sort by, max by, you are giving it not a truthy value. Well, you are giving it a truthy value, but what it's looking for is it's going to try and let me start over. So max by, sort by, min by, all of these things work best when you are trying to put things in order via a numeric value. So ideally, you're giving sort by, max by, some numeric value that it can use to make that comparison. So in this case, we want to sort by length, right? That's like a numeric value. Each of these names will have a length that gives us a numeric value. If we wanted to sort by, I don't know, I can't think of like another thing that we would sort by. But ideally, like you're giving it some numeric value here. Yeah, Lawrence. Oh, you are muted.
Thank you.
Mhm.
If we wanted to use like an enumerator to give us the sum of their ordinals to sort by, would you put that in there, or would it be better to put that outside and then pass that to sort by? Or
Yeah, I mean, if you wanted to sort by the sum of the ordinal values, you could do that here. I don't know exactly how off the top of my head. I mean, I do know, but it's going to take a little bit more thinking, but like sum of ordinal values.
so it would be
Cool.
okay to call that enumerable inside that sort by. That wouldn't be bad. I'm guessing I'm asking etiquette, whether I should do that outside or it's okay to do that enumerable inside that other.
Yeah, and just to be clear, the enumerable that you would be using is sum inside of here. Yeah, you can nest enumerables inside of other enumerables, and you will. You can and will do this. Yeah.
Thank you.
Zach.
So thinking of Lawrence's question, I think one way to tackle that is to have one, like an each, to then transform the array of words into its sum ordinal values. And then you can use sort on that.
Yeah.
So at most,
you
I
could
think
do
it'd be
that.
just a two-step, just to make it the easiest readable.
Yeah, you could do that. I'm not going to go down into that rabbit hole, even though I think it is a super interesting problem. But yeah, you could definitely do something like that. All right, sweet. So this idea of like sorting something by is fairly useful when you're like working with an array of strings or an array of integers, things like that. I think though it's the most useful when you're working with an array of richer objects. And so what I mean by richer objects are like objects that we create, classes and instances of those classes that we have created. So to show that, I am going to grab some code from the lesson. There is a person class in here. Yeah, Lawrence, I would love an enumerable that sorted us by confusion level. That'd be great. Okay, so I'm going to grab this person class from the lesson and just plop that down right here. And I am going to create an array of some people. Okay, cool. I've got a person class, some people. Now I am doing some bad Ruby etiquette, which is I have some executable code in a file with a class definition. So if I were doing perfect Ruby etiquette, this stuff would probably live in a runner file. Okay, just to be clear, I'm doing bad Ruby etiquette right now, but I'm I'm going to keep doing it because I am in charge here. All right, so we've got a person class. Every person can respond to age and name, and we've got some people. So if we wanted to get the oldest person, if we wanted to look at our array of people and return the oldest person, what enumerable could we use? If you think you know, throw it in the chat. What enumerable could we use to get the, to get the oldest person? Cool, great, I love it. We could use max by. So get the oldest person. Aw, my L key just came off my keyboard. That's sad and sad. I've been putting off getting a new computer because I have a really great sticker on this one. Dumb reason to put off getting a new computer. Okay. Sorry, I got distracted. Okay, so we're gonna get the oldest person and we can use max by to do that. So I have this array of people, people. Oh no, now my L key isn't working. Oh shoot, there we go, okay. Excuse me. So I want to get the max person by their age. So let's save this to a variable and print the oldest. Cannot type, there we go. All right, cool. And we get Scarlett. Is Scarlett the oldest? Yes. Cool. So I think that this like max by, sort by, min by, most useful, I think, when working with an array of these smart objects where it's like, okay, I've got a person. If I try and print like people dot max, this is gonna give me one of the persons. No, maybe not. Oh, no, it's not. Ha, it's not even gonna work. It's gonna say, I don't know how to compare two people objects. I don't know. And so when we're working with these objects, we need to tell Ruby exactly what characteristic we want to use to determine which is the max person. Yeah, Alex.
It feels like sometimes we assign, and maybe I missed this and you've already talked about it, but like on line 18, sometimes we assign, we say oldest equals and then the enumerable, and then sometimes we don't. Is there either etiquette or rules or something like?
Yeah, I would say there is both etiquette and rules. So the rule is if I need to use the return value of this enumerable somewhere within this scope that I'm in, so in this file, in a particular method, I need to assign it to a variable in order to like effectively use that information. If I like print this, I'm gonna get sort of a weird thing. It's gonna give me like this enumerator with all of these things and telling it like, oh, you're trying to call max by on these things. So this print is like kind of messing us up here. I don't want to print just this first line. I want to print like the return value of this whole thing. So that's why I need, in this case, to assign it to a variable. Now, what we often see, or what I will often make comments on in an independent challenge, is if we have, let's say this is like inside a method, oldest person, and we're giving it our people array. Now we need to end this and fix our indentation. Okay, and now if I want to print the oldest person from our people array, okay, this is working, but I don't need to assign this variable because when I have this max by wrapped in a method, it's the return value of the method that I can grab and use in its own right. So this will still work because now the return value is sort of being like held as the return value of this method. Okay. Now, if inside the method we wanted to print like print oldest oldest, if we wanted to print the return of this enumerable inside the method, then I would need to assign that variable because I'm using that return value inside the scope of the method. Does that help clear things up, or did that just make it more confusing for folks?
I thought it was good.
Okay. Yeah, Sarah.
Thanks for asking that question, Alex, because I was wondering the same thing, but I have a new question now.
Yeah.
When in line 21, why is sometimes do you have to print oldest and sometimes it's before the end? Is it the same concept of what you're saying? Basically, like if it's the method that's defined like above, and then you call the variable that you just like the oldest equals people, and then why is it, I guess my question is, why is it between the ends? And then I'll stop speculating.
Why is it between the ends?
Yeah, sometimes I feel like the P oldest is between the ends and sometimes it's before it.
Yeah, so the reason that I am printing oldest here inside the method is to show that if I want to use this oldest variable again, or if I want to use the results of this max by again inside this method, I need it to be assigned to a variable. So I'm just using print here just to demonstrate that. I could demonstrate this in a different way where maybe the oldest person method gets me the name of the oldest person. And then in order to see that, like in this world, I need to output it to the terminal. So I could either print from the method itself. So when I call this method, part of the method's function will be to print the oldest person's name. Or I might say, like, I don't want my method to print anything. I will simply, maybe not simply, I will print the return value of the method. So I can print the return value of the method, or I could tell the method that as part of its function, it needs to print this last line. If I print both, it's going to give me Scarlet Scarlet because it's going to print the return value of this method. So it's going to run the method, which prints Scarlet. And then also the return value of P is whatever was printed to the terminal. And so then it will print Scarlet again. I'm not sure if I fully answered your question.
Well, I understand your answer, so thanks for answering that. I was asking more when line 21 would be in 19.5 instead, but it wouldn't be P there. It would be something else, but the method is still run.
Oh. Like if I did like print the, well, if I tried to print the oldest here, to be honest, I don't know when.
Maybe I'm not asking the question correctly. I'll come up with a better question of what the examples I'm looking for or referring to, and I'll Slack you.
Okay, sounds good.
Or I'll send it to the main Slack or whatever.
Perfect. The one thing that I will say is like when we were learning about map and each, actually really when we were learning about each, we often printed inside of the block to show that each was hitting every single enumerable. And so we were printing just to show that functionality, but we I would say we do not often print from inside the enumerable. But definitely throw some more questions around that in the Slack channel. All right, cool. Great. Any other questions about this max by with these like smarter, richer, better objects? Okie dokie. Let's see, what do I want to do next? Yeah, I think I want to have y'all do a little bit of practice with this. So let me pull this down here. So in the lesson, at the end, there's this practice with some Kardashian type people and some prompts. I think I'm going to throw you into your breakout rooms again. I'd like for you to take the next, let's see, we're going to go till 10:25. So take the next however many minutes that is until 10:25 in your breakout rooms to see how many of these prompts you can get through using this code above. And again, I'm going to have y'all DM me what you're able to get through. And this time, let's have the shortest person in your breakout room be in charge of the DM. Questions about what I'm going to ask you to do? Yeah, Brant.
Yeah, when you say DM, do you mean in the Zoom chat or the Slack? Slack?
Great question. In Slack, DM me in Slack.
Cool.
Yeah, excellent clarification. Any other questions? All right, cool. We are going to let this go until 10:25. I can't do the math right now, so I'm just going to give us plenty of time on our timer. But at 10:25, I'm going to bring us all back together. We'll palm, and then we'll start the next lesson at 10:30. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, I'm recording now. Welcome back. I know that that was not enough time to go through all of that little practice chunk, but hopefully you were able to get through at least a couple of those examples. There are a bunch of Ruby enumerables. We are not going to cover them all in class. At the bottom of that lesson, there is like a suggested homework for this particular lesson that is some of the enumerables exercises in the Ruby exercises. I would say if you are super excited about digging into these today, like that would be a great afternoon activity, or just make sure that you have on your list to do the enumerable exercises at some point because they will be helpful. Again, we're not going to cover every single enumerable in class. We just don't have time. And once you have mastered a few of them, hopefully the others become a little bit easier to understand and work through. All right, we're going to take a break and then, oh, sorry, Jermaine, did you have a question?
Yeah, I was just curious, when you're referencing the numerals exercise, you're talking about the Ruby exercises and the enumerable section? Okay.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, exactly. Okay, cool. Let's go ahead and take a break and we'll come back. Let's come back together at 10:33 for nested, what are we doing? Nested collections? Yeah, 10:33 for nested collections. I'll see y'all at 10:33.